Well, yesterday I gave a short anecdote about how a connection to a specific brand and product and the LGBTQ community propelled Cincinnati's own Procter & Gamble to become one of the first leading Fortune 500 companies with inclusive protections for our community in their HR policy. The woman who's going to be joining us in just a moment is an extraordinary global leader in these efforts. She was at the company at the time of these changes, and that woman is Shelly McNamara, who is the Chief Equality and Inclusion Officer and Executive Vice President at P&G. She's going to tell you a little bit more about how she views this work and how she got here, but before she joins us, we're all going to take a quick look at a moment in time at Procter & Gamble.
Let's tell each other the truth here, though. I mean, really, you want to talk truth?
I actually once was asked to describe to a group of P&G women from around the world what it's like to be gay, what the experience is like. And the way I described it was, it is to never know when you're going to be hunted.
If you're in the closet, you can't be bringing all your energy to the workplace because you're holding some of that energy to protect your own identity, your own sense of safety.
I started looking for my community, for LGBTQ people in P&G who I could relate to.
We should feel free to associate as a group of gay and lesbian employees.
I wasn't looking for people's approval. I was just looking for acceptance.
We just want to be recognized for who we are.
It was the importance of recognizing a person's full life and the importance of their having a choice on what that life would be.
I wanted to create the world I want to live in.
If you're being discriminated against, you have to fight back.
Whew. Good morning. It's great to be here. In 1992, I moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, where P&G's global headquarters is. And I moved there with my then partner and now wife, Cindy. Cindy and I have been together for more than 40 years, which is like really crazy. And I moved there with great trepidation. I moved there with fear because I didn't know what it would be like to live in what I interpreted as a city even more conservative than the Midwest city that I lived in, and that was Cincinnati. So I went there with that great trepidation. And I also felt unequal from the start. Cindy and I owned a home together where we were, and we went to move. And what I learned was P&G would offer this, but like all the banking and all that kind of stuff, like only my name could be on it, or my married partner. I wasn't allowed to be married. We weren't allowed to be married. I didn't have that privilege. I also remember, this is gonna be a rough one. I also remember the moment that in 1992, when there was, we had these bulletin boards, right? And up on that bulletin board, they put the new policy, the new non-discrimination policy that included sexual orientation in 1992. My life and the experiences and changes in my life personally mirrored what happened at P&G for many decades. And I say that I was one voice, I was one force, I was a part of a collective. Sometimes there were 3 of us, sometimes there were 5 of us, sometimes I was the only one, but we drove consistently a conversation that said we need to keep making changes in policy, in systems, in culture, in belonging. And it's been really, really, really the most important thing that I've done in my life, other than marrying my wife and having 3 daughters, was to do that work alongside. This is my final moment of being the Chief Equality and Inclusion Officer and speaking publicly at P&G, because on Monday I will turn my job over to Christine Decker, who is dressed just like me, coincidentally. We didn't plan this, and like I think the universe speaks. And when I told our CEO a year ago I wanted to retire, he's like, "Okay, great. You do your job pretty damn well. Why don't you tell me who should go into the role after you?" And I'm like, And twice we've done this. When we had our announcement day, we had a big global call, people all around the world gathering. We get to the office at 6:30 in the morning, we were dressed exactly the same. Really strange. I've had the privilege of having a career at P&G that works at the intersection of holistic diversity, equality, inclusion, and then also LGBTQ specific. I've also had the privilege of raising 3 daughters with my wife. And as we got privileges, because the way it started out was my partner couldn't be my wife, had to be my partner only. If I chose to get married, couldn't. We wanted to have children. I'll never forget the phone call that I made with my brother. I called him in 1997. Remember what happened in between 96 and 97? There were a few things that happened in this country. One was Ellen DeGeneres came out. I believe it was in 1997. She lost her show. Matthew Shepard was an out gay young man who was dragged and murdered in Texas. And these are the moments that seem to happen one after the other back in the 90s. Yes, we still have lots. It was a tough time, but I remember calling my brother and saying, you know, Cindy and I are, it was 1996. We're thinking of having children, but I don't know if I can have children and stay with P&G. And he said to me, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't see any models for that, like a same-sex couple and having kids and being successful at P&G. And he said to me, if they don't support you, they don't deserve you. Love that. We worked to make changes. We got domestic partner benefits. And I've just, the colleagues that I got to work with over that time has just really been incredible. I'm at a really important reflection moment in my life. You can tell by even just standing here and I'm just kind of riffing, right? You know, and P&G is at an inflection point. If you haven't noticed, there are people who are attacking. I wake up every day and I say there are people attacking the work that I do for a living, what I care about, and who I care about. And I still have hope. And I still have confidence. But we've been doing some work, as not only I've had this inflection point, but we want to, and I know for me, before I hand this over to Christine, what I wanted to be able to say is, hey, Christine, there's some really cool things that have been important about our history. And so I want to tell you a couple of highlights of that today. I want to tell her, what have we learned recently? Because we've been doing some different listening lately. And we've learned some things. And then how do I think and we think we should evolve? And I'm going to talk to you about that. And the evolution and all the 3 core choices we've made are aligned all the way up through our CEO. Now there's a heck of a lot of work to be done to figure out how to do it. And Christine and the team are going to do that. But I want to talk to you a little about what we learned about history. It's important to know your history. It's important to understand it. The original change agents, like me and many of you in here, were the start of everything. We were part of marginalized communities, and we said, enough. You're not hearing us. You're not seeing us. You're not including us. You're not supporting us. We're the base and the foundation of the work. And the ERGs that we created, and we at P&G created them a long time ago, we have pockets of tremendous progress. Race, gender, LGBTQ, and we have so much more to do, right? We learned and we helped the organization learn and know about our communities and why we matter. I work for a consumer products company. Us understanding human beings matters. Us figuring out how to better serve human beings matters. We helped our leadership get that if you can't see us and support us, how the hell are you ever going to serve consumers out there? And it's a relentless piece of work. It's relentless. It's not done. We have so much more to do. We focused a lot on representation. I focused a lot on representation. As the Chief Equality and Inclusion Officer, I was relentless about making sure leaders knew, here's your expectations, here's what we're going to hold you accountable for, and here's how we're going to build your capability. Expectations, accountability, and capability. But the one measure that we focused on a lot was representation. Proud that we've made enormous progress. Today, 34% of our managers in the US are multicultural. Globally, 50% of our managers are female. That took a heck of a lot of work by lots of people. We're now having more visibility to the LGBTQ community because we have worked to get the data system in place. People have the opportunity to identify themselves, but relentless on representation. Relentless on leadership accountability, we made progress. We also worked on building an integrated strategy that I'm proud of, and I'm proud of doing that with a group of incredible colleagues. We've also learned some things that we could do better. We learned that too often we made E&I a thing on the side. You know, you go to a town hall of a chief executive officer at P&G and they're like, okay, we're doing this and we're doing this. Now let's talk about E&I. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, it's core to your business. Segmenting human beings, understanding them, identifying where you have gaps. with your Hispanic population, with your African American population, with your LGBTQ. And by the way, all of those letters aren't all exactly the same. And we also learned that we unintentionally excluded people from the work. That means we let them off. We didn't hold them accountable to do the work. That meant that too often we had African Americans doing the research to find out how are we leaving out African Americans. And we had gay people saying, what is this that we're doing over here? Help us. Wait a minute, why aren't the straight people helping? Why aren't the white people helping? Your job is to be a brand builder. When your job is and your responsibility is to be a brand builder, and you got a lot of work to do to make sure you understand the fullness of community and serve. If your job is to build an organization, then you better make sure you understand the lived experience and you understand where there's gaps and you figure out how to help fill those in. But you also don't fix your inclusion problem by excluding. We did some deep listening. And I'm going to tell you some of the things that have defined this evolutionary slide that I have in front of you here, which is we did some listening. We had some groups of straight white men. And multiple focus groups and said, I need to listen. I'm like, you know what? I need to listen. I need to learn. I need to figure out. Here's some of the things that I learned. Some things I learned is that we were unintentionally leaving people out. And what we want, I'm going to focus on what we want to make sure. So how did we do that? And what was happening that I didn't like or we didn't like? E&I work is not about affinity work. It's about leader's job. It's not just for diverse talent. It's for all of us, right? It's not about leading by a few. It's about people doing their darn job. So it's all our work. Diversity is not just for a few people. We got to stop saying stuff like, well, and then there's the diverse talent. Nope. Nope. We're all diverse, okay? And when we have an issue with attrition with African Americans, let's name it. When we have an issue because we've turned every gay person we've ever brought into a department, let's talk about that, right? So let's talk about it's for all, but name the distinctiveness and the difference. We need to do more integrated messaging and storytelling, not go, and now let's talk about D&I. It's like, no, integrated storytelling. What is it about what we know about consumers? What do we know about employees? Where do we have gaps? What are we trying to create in order to deliver a superior consumer experience and a superior employee experience? And how are we going to measure that? And guess what? One affects the other. Superior experience for all employees. Measure it. Figure out if it's happening. When it's not, take the data and figure out what the heck you're going to do. And then it's not just about representation measures. We have to do more work on our inclusion measures, and we're working on that. So I'm just going to show you, as I close out here, I want to show you the 3 areas of evolution that we're making, and because we're at a pivot point. My objective is to make sure we're foolproofing this work. My objective is to have this not only, I wanted to accelerate progress. When some people heard I was hosting focus groups with straight white men, they're like, what are you doing, Shelly? What are you doing, centering white, like what are you doing, centering the majority now? And I'm like, no, I'm listening. I'm listening because I want to hold them all accountable to make progress for this organization. And I want to find out what are we doing and how are we doing that we could do better, so we bring more of them in so they go, yes. Right? And I get we're all driven by personal interest, but what I do know is my friends and my colleagues that are straight white men that are in this work, they get that the pie expands. They get that we're adding an extra chair at the table, and we need them. And we have to pay attention to the language we're using and figure out what are we saying that tells them we don't need them, they don't belong, and they're not a part of it. Hold them accountable. How do we do the evolution? This is the stake in the ground I put in with our CEO, and he's aligned. Further embed this work into how we grow our business and organization. Other people may be running away from it, we're stepping forward. Further embed it, because if it's relevant, build it in. If it's not relevant, why would we do it? Deliver on the promise of inclusion and belonging for all employees. We want all employees to have a great experience as employees. We need to make sure that we pay attention to how we name things and how we do things. All right, we need to look at the data. And guess what? We can make what I call unifying choices. When we went to parental leave care a number of years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, it was what I call a unifying choice. Sometimes you make distinctive choices. Sometimes you make unifying choices. Distinctive choices, we have an issue with this. We need to differently recruit at a different place because we're not getting enough Hispanic employees. That's distinctive. Go for it. Important. Necessary. Unifying choices. Parental leave. Who is it? Who are we not supporting to be there at this important moment of life when you get a new child? Same-sex couples. My first daughter, I had no time off for my first daughter. Why? Because I didn't biologically carry her. Then we had twins. I'm the short one. I got the twins. I don't know. Didn't, but they fit. And 7 pounds, 2 ounces each. Yep. They gave me maternity leave then. But I had to use all my vacation for my first daughter because they didn't have a policy. So parental leave, who did it bring together? Same-sex couples and men, straight men for the first time. We're like, oh, wow. And I'm not saying like suddenly, but I'm like, we can make unifying choices, and we can make sure that our language, our habits, and our practices are consistent with our intent. So we're going back and getting clear. What's our intent? What do we want to happen? How does this play out? How does it manifest? Distinctive work, detailed work, and distinctive choices, and some unifying. And we're paying attention to our language. No more of like, I put this woman on my team. I finally put a woman on my leadership team. I'm like, no, you actually put an outstanding talent. This actually happened. Senior executive, I'm on a call. He says, isn't it great? I have this senior, hey, you just heard this presentation from this person. She did a great job. I knew it was important to put a woman in that role. And I'm like, excuse me, no, you put an outstanding leader in that role. And she is delivering, and she happens to be a woman. But let's not confuse it. Don't diminish her in saying this one thing about you. No, people are, yes. And yes, we do need more diverse talent, but let's give people credit. And when we do that, we alienate. We alienate everybody. We diminish her and who she is and what she brings, and we alienate. So we got to stop that. Here's our commitment. Make it clear. Our CEO is saying these words. He's not unclear. He's very clear. We have him scripted. This is why we do the work we do. It will hold us in the moment. It'll keep us in the future. It makes our work relevant. It makes it important. Thank you for listening. It's been really fun.
Easy. For nearly 4 decades, Shelly has shown us all that we can be leaders, we can be parents, we can be authentic, we can have heart in this work. And yet the last week, Erin's talked about the baton of change and what we owe those who have carried the baton. Thank you for carrying the baton. We will do right by you and your legacy. We love you, Shelly. Thank you. Congrats on this incredible chapter.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
Here, we also have some flowers for you.
Thank you.
I don't think I can talk long when you're crying, because one of the things I wanted to tell you sincerely is during COVID, I had the really, really huge honor to be in Fireside with Shelly when we did it on Zoom, when everything was changing. And one of the three things that have stood out to me. One is seeing and hearing your story with your wife around your kids and being a working executive. That is really, really tough. And you are an inspiration to me. There was a moment when I decided not to do an MBA and to go the route of OD. And your path there and how you look at change has been extraordinary. And I guess the last thing I'll say is when I hear the longevity, the decades of this work, that is the hardest work as a change agent, what it takes to stick with it and to find the energy that you still exude up here on stage. And I think about, going, whether it's going to bed at the end of the night or when you're making a transition and not retirement, but like, what is the next thing? I often think about that adage, it's a sports one, of leaving it all on the field. Like when you, at the end of the day, how are you gonna feel, and what do you wanna feel in leaving it all out there? When I think and reflect on your career, I say, not only, it's so clear, Shelly, you've left it all on the field and devoted your life to one company, a huge, hundreds of thousands of employees. And also the next thing I ask is, well, where's her next field? Where's your next field? Because wherever you go next, you're gonna just keep giving it your all. And we are extraordinarily honored to have you. And in our movement, and in the movement around intersections, you are incredible. And I wanna thank you so much. Very kind.